Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Astrology and Beyond with Tatiana. I am also broadcasting for ANN Archetypal News Network. Today, I'm going to be talking about the first half of March, the astro weather, and most importantly, the upcoming eclipse tomorrow, March 3rd. It's a full lunar eclipse in Virgo, and it's a very important one because it's the last one we're going to have along the axis of Pisces and Virgo before our eclipses begin happening in Leo and Aquarius, which will completely change the tone of everything that's happening. I would say this is a very, very interesting, I wouldn't say crisis-filled eclipse. I mean, take it or leave it. I think it's a blessing eclipse actually is something that's going to give us a lot to really celebrate, if anything, with its tone of letting go and its tone of grieving. But I think it's needed. It's one of those things that if we navigate properly, I think what's coming could be very, very fantabulous. But again, we're always the ones to choose. So, with no further ado, before the further ado, actually, two things. With this Mercury retrograde energy, and I'm not blaming things on planets, but I definitely feel very spacey whenever Mercury is retrograde, and especially in Pisces. My God, it's like my brain is a mush. So, patience with my going all over the place brain. And second, what was second? Oh, yes. I am offering a 50% discount in 3 of my very popular readings, and I'm actually launching one type of reading that I would love to offer because I apply it to my own life, and oh my gosh, does it work. So the 3 readings I'm being very excited about giving a 50% discount. Is like an amazing discount. You go to my website, tatianahassan.com, go into Astrology and Beyond, and these are my services. You click here to see everything. Obviously, you can browse through all of them, but I'm giving 50% off the full birth chart reading. And there's a reason for that as we move into these Aries conjunct Saturn in Aries, the Neptune conjunct Saturn in Aries kind of era where it's really about us and our own identity and cement that in the world for something grander and bigger, or an alignment to come from the beyond. It's important to know who we are and have clarity, because if we do have clarity in direction of who we are, then obviously it's going to be much easier to navigate anything. So if you don't know your birth chart yet, or you just have a little bit of a notion of astrology and you want a really real in-depth, here is my 2-hour full birth chart reading. Now, the other one I have that I'm definitely very happy to offer is this relationship reading. The relationship reading is also phenomenal because at this time where people are going to be not only finding their own alignment, but also finding their tribes. And self first, relationship next, tribe then. And important to know what people are we connecting. It's very possible that as people leave our lives, we leave situations, things shift and new things come in. The new things that come in and the new people have their own set of dynamics, but it's important to understand also how we relate to each other and how we can grow consciously together. It is the time of conscious partnerings. So this is a great value for this amazing 2-hour readings. And then my last one. This is the new one I'm actually including because precisely groups are going to start forming right, left, and center. And it's my group dynamics reading. This is a great reading for dynamics at work, dynamics in maybe projects that people do together. Cohabitation, for instance, even family dynamics. So anything that has to do with one more than 2 people, this is a great reading. It's 3 sessions of 2 hours, so it's 6 hours with me, and it's really deep because this is something that can help you navigate group dynamics. And oh my gosh, in the world, that's what we need the most, is to be at peace with ourselves and be at peace with the world. My cat Neptune needs to come in. Come, kissy. All right. Here he is. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, with no further ado, that's that. Let's get that out of the way and go back now to what's going on in the sky. All right, da-dan, da-dan. Here we are. I hope this is working. It should be working. Okay, so first half of March. Let's see what's going on. So, tan, tan, tan. This is kind of big and important because the tone of this beginning of the month is obviously set by the full moon lunar eclipse, total lunar full moon. Obviously, it's a full moon total lunar eclipse in Virgo. Blah blah. I've said it. Blah blah blah. Now, what's very clear here? You see, it's a big stellium in Pisces opposing what? Well, the eclipse in Virgo. So our main dominant energies are the newness of this Aries, very recent entry and conjunction of Neptune and Saturn. That's the undertone in the sextile. You know, we've talked about this extensively, to Pluto, and the sextile to Uranus. And this whole underlying thing is the theme that carries the rest. But we cannot just ignore one part of the chart. Everything has its perfect brewing conditions for something to occur. The other thing that is prominent is this Jupiter retrograde in Cancer, trining, oh, come on Neptune, trining the eclipse points. Neptune, sorry, it's my cat. Come on Neptune, here, we're gonna Saturnize this Neptune and say, Neptune, stop it. Here he is, he's so cute. Say hello, Neptune. Hello. All right. Never mind. I'll keep going. I'm so silly. Anyway, I guess part of being with me here is just getting through that, at least to date. It's so serious, you know. I'm trying not to be so Virgoan and trying to channel a little bit more today. Anyway, so the Virgo eclipse with this big Pisces stellium and Jupiter in Cancer really powering up. Powering the sun and Mercury. It's kind of in the midpoint between the sun and Mercury. So it's a big balm. Let's say, this is why I say this is a beautiful, it's an eclipse that is more of a, let's celebrate what's leaving and move on kind of thing. So let's look at these specifics. So let's look at the energy first of how this shows up, because the axis of this eclipse, like I said, is Virgo and Pisces. And by the way, I'm revamping my archetypes, so here they are, kind of similar from the ones before, but a little bit more polished. Not quite finished, but that's part of a project I'm doing as well. It's a full, gigantic, all archetypes project that I'm going to be sharing for making astrology much more easier to see, feel, and understand. So a project I've been wanting to do for like several years already now becomes much more easier with the new tools we have today to create images. So anyway, that aside, Virgo, this is the axis, is the same thing in a different way, because Virgo, the essence of the Virgo energy is to perfect in the world, to elevate, to grab the invisible, which is Pisces, and make it structured, make it useful in the world. That's Virgo's thing, is structure, analysis, craftsmanship, here, the earth. But essentially, it's a very similar energy because it's about the perfecting, is the elevation of spirit through matter. The Pisces energy is the dissolution, is the one that knows it all, knows everything. Virgo needs to understand in the matter, to to make sense of what's invisible through matter, to be grounded, whereas the Pisces is already everything that is. It's this fluid, non-tangible, all-knowing energy, all-knowing everythingness. So when we have an eclipse in this area, what is eclipsing really is the Virgo side of of the eclipse, where the moon is being eclipsed. So what it means is that temporarily this energy is as though it disappeared somehow. And what it's asking of us is to let go of the need to perfect and understand absolutely everything, the need to control the outcomes, to also allow for more of the flow to guide our lives, to guide the next steps, is having a deep trust in the all-knowing everything that has already created everything. It's already there. We just need to navigate it. What happens with Virgo? Virgo needs to know, needs to understand, that energy is everything through sacrifices, the energy of, well, we must do this because there's a duty, because we need to make the world make sense. And this eclipse is first asking us to release the old habits of overdoing it, over-functioning, having to be so perfect at everything, the hypercriticism, also their identity that is tied to productivity, like we need to produce, we need to do, the doer, and the usefulness, and let that go. Try to release the grip. Also, this is the end of the service that is not in alignment. So anything that we do for service that it's forced, it will not fly anymore, because what we want is to realize that true service that comes from the heart is what really serves the world. It's what really creates the structures that are sustainable for humanity to function. It's not the overdoing. It's not the obsession of the Virgo perfection. So it's a time also to grieve and release. So obviously we're releasing that over perfectionism, the things we can't control, basically. I have this image. You're grabbing onto a branch and you're in a river, and the river's flowing and it's picking up speed, and you're hanging on even stronger, thinking that, and that branch is already almost dead, it's about to break, but you're still hanging on to it because there's some level of control. If I'm floating above the water, I'll be safe. And what this saying is like, let it go. This branch is already dead. The river is going to carry you all the way downstream into a nice, beautiful beach where you will land, and you'll see it's different. But you need to trust the process. So you let go of the branch, and now you're floating down the river. And eventually, that river will carry you. It will carry you home to that place where you're meant to be, what you're meant to be doing, with the people that you're meant to be. So at this time is about really letting go. Letting go. There's also a big theme around the dissolving of the ego, because the ego is the one that wants to control. So Virgos, especially Virgos, if you're still too attached to needing to know exactly how things are going to go, this is going to be a difficult transit, because at this time it's just all about absolute trust. What we could expect also is just heightened sensitivity to everything. The Piscean field is that all that is, that we saw in that image, is everything, is the everything. And as we saw in our here, we have Mars that has entered Pisces by that time. It enters today, actually. uh, obviously the sun, we have Mercury retrograde and Venus. So this is it's like big reviewing. It's a big process of going within, maybe reviewing our values. That's the Mercury Venus, reviewing certain choices, and with the Cancer, Jupiter in Cancer retrograde is also reviewing what makes us feel safe, reviewing what are the choices that we make, the things that we have valued that give us true sense of safety and home. This is a great time, not quite right now, but after the eclipse, to move on. If you, for example, have been wanting to move homes, this is a great time for that, because it's a time of letting go of maybe the old things and grieving. In Pisces, there's big closures, big closures. So big grieving. But this grieving comes with deep compassion. When Jupiter amplifies this field, the Spinfian field, it amplifies compassion. It amplifies love. With Venus there, it also amplifies the liminal, the sacred. So what we could expect is a real expansion of everything that's beautiful, that's feminine, that's sacred. Is the amplification also of emotions. Jupiter expands everything it touches, so the emotions could be very real. And this is where we can find ourselves back within, in our own home temples, in our own, this is where I belong. And the I belong is to the all that is. And that realization can let us be more ready to tackle the next thing, because nothing is really ever lost. This is really the message of this eclipse, is we're not losing anything. Something that is let go of is never really lost. It's just a part of a bigger cycle, of an evolutionary process, but it's always there. The field is always there. We're just upgrading. We're just getting into a new adventure. And this is where it all makes sense, because with Mercury retrograde is where we can actually think about everything that we have lived through this cycle of the nodes. As the nodes are getting also ready to enter Aquarius, the North nodes ready to enter Aquarius, everything seems to make sense, because our collective destiny of feeling more of a humanity, of a whole, of a consciousness, is what's going to give us the power to awaken that spiritual selves within. And this is a time for that. It's a time for release, surrender, and awakening. And how do we awaken if not? The only way to awaken is to allow the divine to do it. We have no control over it, really. Even Kundalini awakenings we don't control. People might think they do. You can maybe force it with a lot of breathing and techniques. But in reality, when you're ready, you're ready. When you're ready to step into a more expanded state of consciousness, it just happens. And this is what's happening. It's everything will start to make sense. Letting go of the control. The Virgoan need to know. The Virgoan need to control the process. We can't control it. The only thing we can do is surrender, let go, and let the current take us to the next stage. The next stage is exciting. We have been talking about Saturn, Neptune. How do we build? How do we bring the dream? But we have to grieve the previous dream before. And how do we know what we're grieving? We are grieving the dream of the Piscean dream, the illusions, the ideals, the martyrdom, all of that, those, how can we put it? Yeah, ideals that were rooted in something out there. Saturn now is asking us, Saturn Neptune is asking us, here now, today, what are we doing? How do we bring this dream to reality? It demands action. It demands accountability. How do we do that? But obviously with this, like I said, with Jupiter, this is a beautiful way to end, is the celebration party. It is literally the celebration of life, of the dreams we're letting die, or the things, people, places, jobs, identities. Everybody's having to grieve something at this time, while the new is forming at the same time. That's what's crazy. It forms at the same time as it's dying. But this is the celebration of life, and this is why this eclipse feels more beautiful than difficult. When is it going to be difficult? If, and that's particularly for Virgo, Pisces, the mutable signs, Gemini, and Sagittarius people. If you're still hanging on to those dead dreams and not letting go and not flowing with the current, especially I think for Virgo, this must be very difficult for with people with placements, Virgo placements, because of our tendency to need to know it all and to control the outcomes and to know how things work. Here at this time, we know nothing. We're just understanding. What, if anything, this eclipse will give us just the understanding of why things occurred the way they occurred. We have the beautiful blessing of Mercury retrograde to let us review that, for the old things to come through. This is absolutely not the time right now in this window while Mercury is still retrograding. It's not the window to start the new things just now and sign on the dotted line and go forward. No. We're still in the review process. We're in the closing, in the final closing phase as the new starts emerging. So let this closing phase close. I feel the astrology is rather calm. You see, we have the trines, the sextiles. It's rather calm. It's almost like giving us a little break. A break to grieve, a break to be. So take that break, please. Take it. Take the break. Take the break to breathe. Take the break to go for the long walk. Who is it wonderful for? Like artists, people that are just wanting to connect to their inspirations. Great time to do your journaling and all the ideas that flow into your mind, to do the closures, to maybe create or start dreaming. This is the time to start dreaming of what could the new thing look like once this old dream collapses. It's a time for revamping your dream. So it is beautiful. It's bittersweet, you know. Pisces is the endings, is the dissolution. So that's that. Now, what is a little bit complex here is we do have a square between Mars and Uranus. And this square, which is still active, I think it's important not to make anything very rash. Don't make rash, bold actions, because this is where decisions that are made without real consideration could lead to potential disruptions or even accidents. This is where accidents tend to happen when we're like not cautious, not careful, just so impatient, you know. And Mars entering Pisces can have a little bit of a quality of dampness, where it doesn't move in a straight line, really. So all the actions we're taking right now, the best course of action is to really allow things to fall into place. Allow things to fall into place. If you try to force things to go the way you want, that's where things could go really not well. So just allow it. Just give yourself time. That's all I have to say for this, for now. What else could we be having? Like I said, beautiful for also romantic encounters maybe, or even having a little bit more of clarity of what direction you're taking financially. This might be a tough time for finances, especially with Uranus at the end degrees of Taurus, doing its last pass, saying, maybe I'm going to shake up this a little bit more. So you can really find what you truly love and value, what makes you feel home, safe in yourself. This is kind of the story. So this is the time to rewrite those stories and say, okay, what are my values? You know, that includes, how do I deal with my money? What other beautiful thing can be happening now? It's a great time also to heal the inner child. Those things that come from collective grieving, it's really ourselves, it's really our inner children asking to be held. That Cancerian Jupiter in Cancer energy, just wanting to heal the inner child. So I think this is a beautiful time to look at the ancestral, because Jupiter in that trine supports the ancestral. It's not just the family lineage, it's also the it's also the ancestral lines. So it's not only my family here. This is a good time for these family constellations. While Cancer, Jupiter is still in Cancer, that it supports that feeling of knowing how to feel safe in oneself. It supports the nurturing of self. It supports taking time off. It supports reviewing that. So I would say go and have those talks with your family. That relationship, maybe with women, Venus is in the mix. The feminine is very active. There's so many ways this energy can express itself, but it's a time to do those closures, to have those forgivenesses practices. This is where we go and have those talks. This is where we can actually have the talk without the fear. It's not platonic. It's not like that. Amidst, obviously, the potential tensions that could happen with the difficult aspect of Mars and Uranus, and the Neptune, Saturn in Aries potentially bringing disruptive actions. We know there's a lot of heat also coming in the world, but at this time, I think the best course of action is it's allow the water to flow so that the heat doesn't burn too much. And it's not yet the time for get ready, set, go, fire. It's not that time either. So the wisdom says, stay in the calm waters of the grief within, let the process go, let the branch. Okay, so we do have there's a sextile that Uranus is making to Venus in Pisces. It's also great for the creative breakthroughs. For artists, this is amazing. For people that are maybe wanting to meet or are meeting new acquaintances that might be radically different, this is a great time for having encounters of things that you don't expect. It could be an unexpected encounter. People you meet, they might feel more soul aligned also, because Pisces brings a lot of soul tribe together as well. It's not just karmic endings, it's also part of the karmic, a part of the new beginnings of reconnecting souls. So this is where we could find divine partnerships forming as well with Venus in Pisces. This is where we have those exquisite meetings. Also, freedom in relationships. This is where we could find a breakthrough in a relationship that has been blocked. This is where breakthroughs can come. And either things, usually with Venus, Uranus, things either break or make or break, but with under these aspects, it's most likely that if there are breakups, they happen in very beautiful ways. This is good times for separations, if separations are needed. This is where it just feels free, and it feels good, and it feels that it's not going to be broken in a horrible way necessarily, because there's so much support of the energy of the Jupiter energy and the Uranus in a sextile. It's, if it needs to go, it will be freeing. It will not be like devastating tears. Great for artistic innovation. I think this is a time where a lot of artists that have been waiting in the sidelines, especially visionary art, things that are really connected to spirit, this is the time where those artists are going to start coming out of the woodwork. Maybe undervalued artists start becoming more mainstream. And like I say, I am kind of one of those artists, and I'm flooded right now with so many visions. And like I said, I'm working on the archetypes, I'm working on painting my flutes and doing sound journeys, and it's I want to do breathwork tracks, and everything's flooding in. So artists, take this as a beautiful inspirational time to just play and let the inspiration flow through you. Don't try to control it. It's not necessarily time to structure it perfectly. That time will come. very soon, when we finally have the ideas and things are like starting to form. This is where we are literally seeing beyond the veil. All those ideas are starting to flood. The dreams are starting to flood as well. So don't discard your dream time, because the psyche is very, very porous at this time. So allow the dreams to percolate. In dream time, if you have a dream journal, this is a great time to write your dreams. So if anything, and messages can come in all kinds of ways. So if anything comes through you, and it could be that you're in a misaligned direction, that could be part of your psyche saying, align this way. Or suddenly you have a beautiful dream that's so elevated, that's pointing in that direction. When you meditate, excellent time to meditate. Meditate, just be by yourself. The Pisces energy sometimes also invites that withdrawal, so we can connect to the highest expression of the energy. Now, with like everything, the caution is always what happens in the lower vibrations of these energies. This is where we can get lost in fantasy, lost in escapism, lost in, out there, not in victimhood, with the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, and Neptune being the host, not necessarily is the host of this stellium. What can happen is then there is a sense of being completely disconnected, a total dissociation. So we need to be aware of that, and that doesn't become, now I'm going to be a workaholic because that way I can avoid this grief or these feelings or this collective thing. People that are extra sensitive at this time, the very sensitive empaths, one thing I would definitely suggest at this time is not to be too much with everybody and everything. Try to take some distance and some spaces for yourselves at this time more than ever, because this is where in meditation and solitude you can get absolutely amazing downloads of all kinds. If we're too merged in all the dramas of the world, the phone, the people, always in connection with everybody all the time, what could happen is a sensory overload, because also with Jupiter in Cancer, it also expands the sensitivity. So sensitivity is great if we know how to put the boundaries, and that's our Saturn Neptune. Learn to say not right now and take those long breaks to be with spirit. That, I would say, is probably the best way to go about through this eclipse, so that things can be released gracefully and all the new dreams can actually be forming. Now, it's not time to go and start the dreams all right now. This is the seeding point. This is just the things coming down. This is just the energy. Now we got to start planting that little seed and slowly watering. Not in a rush. This is not right now. This is the first little seed. It's very delicate. So let the shifts occur in their own timings. Okay? That is that. Let's see what else we have after our eclipse. Okay, so March 6th, then we have a little bit of a shift with Venus entering Aries. So, well, of course, here is like, I don't have it as entered already because I have this Melbourne, Australia time. But anyway, it will enter Aries on March 6th, and it will be conjoining Neptune and Saturn, and this is where we have a different flavor of that Venus that is maybe closing this contemplation around relationships, around values, around pleasure, around the divine, moves into a very different territory. This is where we can start going, okay, now what? I'm going to read from the Archetypal Universe by Ren Butler, the Venus, Saturn, Neptune, and also the pitfalls, right? The principles is the meaningful quality, friendships and relationships, enduring spiritual values in one's social world, a capacity to accept the merely human or flawed side of people, the dissolving of old romantic fears and barriers. This is a great time for commitments. Because Venus and Saturn can commit. So what can we commit to? Well, there's many things. We could commit to a relationship that has been forming. We can commit to a dedicated path of sovereignty to ourselves, basically to no longer give our power away. We can commit to a spiritual routines that will carry us through life from now on. This is the commitment to creating something new, a new foundation. Remember, this Saturn, Neptune, Aries first degrees is foundational, is the first thing. So this needs to be solid. So whatever we're committing to, make sure is aligned, because if it is, that commitment is going to carry us through whatever we're creating. So this is a time to seed that, but seed it from a place of pleasure, because that's why Venus comes in the mix. This is where we can have these alliances and these connections that seed that point of growth that could be long lasting. This is where certain relationships, and again, if certain relationships end, it doesn't need to be horrible. It could be endings with a bittersweet taste, but so that the new things can be better. Maybe after a divorce, there's some kind of after a nasty divorce, there could be a time of, okay, this needed to happen, and the parting of ways could be could feel like sad, but at the same time exciting. This is why the energy is kind of interesting, because there's sadness and excitement at the same time. There's a possibility for friendship to really be strong and strengthened at this time. Look and seek for your friends if you're having a hard time. This is the time where people can get even more compassionate with Venus in the mix. It's good. It's not just Saturn, Neptune try to bring dreams to reality. This is also where artists can thrive. But you gotta be in the pleasure zone, because Venus can give a little bit of pleasure to the Saturn field, but Saturn also taints Venus with okay, this is not the time for too much exuberance. This is time for commitment, and this is why we talk about commitments. But commitments can be pleasurable, right? Now, the other part of this is this conjunction obviously can be felt or lived in its higher form or in its lower form. And who will this be? Let's do the shadow side. Feelings of anguish and alienation from the fun or loving side of life. Relationship loss and disappointment. This is where I was talking about the loss. Romantic deception and self-deception. Painful conflicts around selling out in relationships or art. So this is why it's a bittersweet space. The bitterness can come from these disappointments in relationships, from the endings, or endings that have to happen for absolute evolutionary reasons. And it can feel like it's a deep deflation. But if we take the higher road, we will understand that there is a reason for this deflation. And if we really harness that, then the pain is doesn't have to be so real. The endings are real. There's lots of endings right now. And I would love to hear from you in the comments. What is ending for you? And what is beginning? Now, who is this energy going to touch the most? People with planets or placements and the end degrees of Pisces, or the mutable signs at the end degrees, and the early degrees of the cardinal signs. Aries, Cancer, Capricorn, and Libra. If you have any placements there, this is where that energy can be really felt. These endings and these beginnings, but with a tone of like heaviness. It's not all jolly and happy, but it could bring rewards, and that's the thing. New commitments. Commit to yourself, or commit. Well, this can also mean that a relationship that has been kind of not quite committal, this is where it can become more committed. So you see, it just depends on the individual case. Sometimes this is where people say, okay, we're going to do this. Now finally we're coming together. Venus Saturn aspects are great for that, are great for creating, for committing, for relationships to come, actually for marriages. So you see, it's not all bad. If it's an ending, it can be a sad, deceptive ending. But if it's a beginning, it can be a great way of upgrading a relationship. So go figure. I don't know, everybody's different and every chart's different, and it can show up in many, many, many ways. So if you're going through that, give yourself some little love, and understand that it's all for the better. It's all for your soul. What else is happening in this chart? So we have, yeah, that's the main thing that we see here. And yeah, the undertone of this time is kind of like, it's just the same as like the eclipse tone. It's a very it's a time for a lot of introspection. That's the word I was looking for. Now on this particular day, we want to go really specific. We can see that the moon, it's doing some interesting difficult aspect to Jupiter, and an inconjunct to Mercury. So in this particular time, the emotions around relationships might be amplified. So that's why I was talking about relationships, because this is the time where we're ending things, and everything in life is relationship. Everything is relationship. So you might be feeling tender around how to navigate that, those endings, those beginnings. The relational energy might be a little bit exacerbated. Let's say the energy of the feelings might be exacerbated, and the desire to bond is also very real, especially with the moon in Libra, where bonding is important. The relationship is important. So if we're losing a relationship, it could be very, very difficult. If we're committing to a relationship, it might require adjustments, because we might be losing our some part of our identity. Usually gets lost when we decide to commit fully to something. But the good news is also that because Venus and Uranus are in a sextile, it's almost that whatever happens in relationships is just to promote and provide more freedom. So if anything, commitment doesn't necessarily mean locking yourself. In this scenario, it's like maybe the conscious partnerships that have been forming for years finally get their little stage time to say, okay, how can we be in a conscious partnership that doesn't have to be like this, but we're committed to be conscious with each other. That changes the tone, and I think that's a lot of how we personally can elevate our relationships, is to make commitment not an obligation, because this is part of that Virgo energy we were talking about in the eclipse. It's beautiful to be committed when we're not forced. Nobody likes to be forced to do things, to exist, to create life in a certain way. So a lot of this field is to redefine relationships within that framework. So get excited. I think it's a good time for getting excited about things. Now, the last thing I want to talk about, because again, there's not like a very heavy astrology at this particular moment. I think once everything moves into Aries, it's gonna go like, go, woohoo! We're having Jupiter going direct, and this is when things can start finally moving along, because during this introspective phase of how we regain our own sense of home, safety, our roots, reconnection with roots, home, family, safety, all of that archetypal theme of Jupiter in Cancer and everything that it expands, which is the bonding and the emotional part of self. I don't know what I was going to say, but I was going to say something. Oh, yes, Jupiter moving direct. what it does, it finally unblocks, or not necessarily unblock, but it's now is the time. That's why I say, if you're, for example, looking for a new home or a new space or a new place, this is a great time to start making those moves, because Jupiter in Cancer can allow for energy in the home or the home front to move forward. Or even the alliances and connections that you are making, the new connections based on the reviewing process of the Mercury retrograde. I would say before Mercury moves direct, we're still in a little bit in this review mode, but Jupiter moving direct allows for things to begin to actually move. It's like having some water kind of held for a little bit, and suddenly the flood just like floods out. So everything you have been restructuring within your own being now begins to manifest outside. So this is when we will start to get a little bit more of momentum and more movement forward. So that would be part of the archetypal field of Jupiter moving. Now, Jupiter and Mercury are going to be in a trine, in an almost exact trine, on March 10th. So this definitely gives a lot of confidence in your capacity to see clearly, within the fog, because Mercury in Pisces is in the fog. What does it amplify? The mental field. It amplifies the dreaming. It amplifies the confidence in, or the trust, I would say, the trust in the divine. That's what is going to happen. And that's why when you really let go of that branch and let the waters move you, it's like you don't have to do anything. Only trust that all the information is already there. It's in the field and you're getting it. This is where ideas can also come in a very the dream just gets bigger. The ideal gets bigger because Jupiter amplifies everything. So what we want is to be able to dream big. You see, and in your big dreams, guess what? These big dreams have a real chance of anchoring themselves in this Aryan seed and this Neptune, Venus, Saturn energy. There is definitely the planting of that seed. And I think this is where we're going to be getting excited about those new dreams. This is time for the dream board. Get your dream board again. If the dream board you had a few years back, and you lived through certain things, and your dream board has expired because those dreams are gone, this is the time for the new dream board. Like, seriously, I'm saying, like, get your clipping materials, your things, or your drawings, or whatever. Make your dream board again. And it's not necessarily like a manifestation board. It's more so you can anchor all those ideas that have been coming or that will be coming into some kind of tangible form, because when it's in a tangible form and you can actually see it, this is where where the brain begins to connect to those new forms. And then you start getting the how to do this, the step by step, because it's very important that these early stages of the seed are really done step by step. So the first step will probably show itself. Like, literally, you'll have this like, oh my God, I just know this is what I need to do. And then do that first step. And then keep dreaming. Dream big. This is a big dream. And once Mercury goes direct, this energy has even more capacity to really move in the direction, because after the review process, we usually have okay, this is what I would change, or what needs to change. And that's why the retrogrades are so important. Every time a planet retrogrades and the energy becomes internal or internalized, it's because in order to create the next level of reality, we need to go back into the field of the thought, or the field of the internal feeling. And once you have cleared that, then the clarity comes again. And this is a time for that, to make sure we have a certain level of clarity through the Mercury retrograde. So this is not the time for the action of the Mercury of going forward with, again, the contracts, the new things, the new projects. This is not the time to launch the project, so please just stay put for a little bit. This is the time to make sure we have corrected and addressed and closed and put the last little thing to rest before the new things, because when the new energy comes in, then we're going to have a lot of like fire. It's gonna be like, oh my god, so much energy. And the thing with when the psyche gets overloaded with fire energy is that you will feel like so restless, so like, I want to go now. It's like you're gonna have like sparks in your butt. So don't try and do that now. Rest a little bit, okay? The last things okay, I just wanted to show you the new archetypes so that we can relate to why this Jupiter in Cancer and how it's relating in the chart with in this context of Jupiter also trining the Sun as well, which will give you a boost of confidence as well. So this is how to see that. The energy of the Cancer as the energy of safety, security, feeling held, supported. You see, this is kind of the archetype. This is why I want to bring back all these images so you can feel what I'm really talking about. And when we have Jupiter, Sun, and Mercury, this is kind of the field. If you have a feel for these images, it's like the Jupiter that is expansive and wants to really share the big ideals, it's the big philosopher, right? And the Sun, it just expands the vision, the horizon of the essence. And what is the essence if not the essence of the self, the solar essence? And then Mercury, the Mercury is the communication, is literally how when we communicate with each other, we have this capacity to flow. Everything, all our ideas and our dreams can be now communicated at this time. Our big dreams, this is a good time to actually share them. Once Mercury moves out of retrograde, that's when you can start sharing your ideas. Now you're forming them. But this field, this is what I call, this is an archetypal field of energies blending together can give rise to magnificent awakenings, to a magnificent renaissance. Like we are in the time of a new renaissance, and it's no joke. There is a feeling of a renaissance coming. So ride that wave while it's there. Ride it, because in the meantime things are still very unstable economically. The world's also going through emancipations. It's going through the whole Pluto in Aquarius, showing the shadows of technology, the shadows of social structures, all of that. And we know from what we hear in the news, I don't do a lot of news precisely because I'm in the mode of creating a new world and not attaching to the old structures. But yeah, you hear all the things that are being uncovered with the Epstein files and some kind of things happening in Iran and the Middle East, again, some heat over there. Like there's just so much, and we can only be where we're at right now, present at this particular moment. So artists, visionaries, healers, this is your time. I'm telling you, this is the time you've been like doing this, especially those who have been sitting in the sidelines getting ready. This is the time. This is the time where we have to step up into that action, into creating that world that has compassion, that has vision, that has dreams, that has spirit in it. This is the time. So don't just sit and wait forever. After the end of March, this is going to be go time for us. So to step into your leadership, because this is where we're going to need that a lot. Through the difficulty of the transitions of our societal restructurings in the next few years, of maybe war, because it's very possible with the fire energy. And the Neptune in Aries is very archetypal signal of possible war. And so within those fields, we have a responsibility, the responsibility to bring that new thing through ourselves, through our channels. This is why the alignment with self is so important at this time, because we the visionaries, especially if you're watching this video, you know I'm talking to you. If you're here, it's because you're one of this visionary tribe. Otherwise, you wouldn't even be listening to this. You're here because you know, and I'm talking to you. You know this is your time. You know this is the time to be brave. This is the time to bring your dreams into manifestation. This is the time to not put it on hold anymore. This is the time to bring it on, baby. And we are doing this, and I'm so pumped because I have so many ideas of how to share even astrology with the world in a different way, so that everybody has access to these self-knowledge tools in an easy, fun way. And you have probably your own projects that you're excited about. If you're an artist, this is your time. Do it. Don't be afraid. It's not anymore about being afraid about how it's going to work. This is really trust the spirit. The spirit is going to give you absolutely everything if you get into your own self, your being, your intuition, and follow your highest excitement. I don't know if you've ever heard about Bashar, but if you're in this channel, chances are you have heard about Daryl Anka, who channels a being apparently from some civilization of space, alien, called Bashar, and he shares this 5-step formula. I don't remember all the things in the formula, but the one thing I always remember is follow your highest excitement, because that means you're connected and aligned in your being. And when you do whatever excites you the most, the next, that field knows, that's so intelligent that it knows exactly how to lead you. And this is why the whole message of this video is to let that Virgo precise, I need to know everything to make it function here in the world the way I have done it up to now, because we're so used to needing to control everything. And the field is asking, let that go and let the spirit guide. And the only way to get there is by you surrendering and going into yourself and following those intuitive hits. You can only do this in those quiet spaces, or in those moments of silence and stillness. So this is the time to do that. So once all the things are downloaded, then you go. Okay, that's what I have for you today. It's like a big piece, and again, lots of, I just was whoop. Everything that's coming through is for a reason. Please let me know in your comments, and also like, subscribe, and all of that, And pardon my it's all over the place today, but I love you, and check out my offerings, because I'm also wanting to grow my community. This is part of my excitement, is to be more connected with the people that are watching this and that are here. Whoever you are, I love you. Thank you for being here. Leave me some comments. I would like to read, so I can at least give you an acknowledgement that I have read your comment, and that you're here, and then you matter, and that we all matter, because that's the whole point, right? Thank you for allowing me to be of service to you in this way. I love you all, and see you in the next video.